Call to order the regular scheduled board meeting USD 464 for Monday, September the 14th. With that, everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, with that, I'm gonna, before we approve the agenda, I don't know if it'd be appropriate, but I'm gonna maybe ask this that we amend and just, we can vote on, I asked Audra if we could just vote on Mr. Foley's presentation after he speaks so that he didn't have to wait around all night on us for a final confirmation. But with that modification, I guess I'd request a motion to approve the agenda.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to approve the agenda with the modifications.
Second.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carried. With that, Mr. Foley, I think the floor is yours.
President Bothwell, members of the board, and district staff, thank you for allowing me to come here tonight. My name is Graham Foley. I'm a freshman at the Tonganoxie High School. I'm currently working on an Eagle Scout project as part of Troop 357. I'd like to especially thank Mrs. Phillips and Mr. Gifford for being such supportive partners in this project. My objective in speaking to you tonight is to request your formal approval for my Eagle project. I passed out 2 handouts for each of you. The first handout is a handout of my Eagle Scout project proposal. I'll be summarizing this throughout my presentation. The second one is a sheet called Navigating the Eagle Scout Project, Navigating the Eagle Scout Service Project. And this is project for beneficiaries. And I'm required to give this one to you before receiving your approval. So I've been a Boy Scout for 4 years, and I wanted to pick an Eagle project that focused on my personal interests. I've been involved in the Tonganoxie band, choir, and drama programs for several years. I thought of this project because my choir teacher, Mr. Gifford, has noticed that the middle school choir students could hear themselves better when they visited other middle school choir rooms. He suspected that the acoustics of our middle school choir room could be the problem. Mrs. Phillips then connected me to the DLR Group architecture firm that was working on the high school. They graciously donated their services to help me find solutions to the sound problem. I eventually got connected to their sound architect, Jonathan Hopkins. I sent him a diagram of pictures of the room so he could make a recommendation. He suggested that 12 to 18 ceiling tiles be removed and replaced with pyramidal sound diffusers to help better reflect the sound. We see the ceiling diagram, which is 2 pages after proposal page C in your handout for more details. The page after that is the picture of the pyramidal sound diffuser. I'll now tell you how I will pay for this project. I'm applying for a grant from a funding foundation based here in Tonganoxie called the LIDE grant. The money I need from them total is $2,090. If I don't get all the funding that I need from them, I will then go to my troop committee to see if they can donate the rest. I now want to share the logistical details along with how I will manage safety during the workday. I'm going to have all of the sound diffusers to be shipped directly to the school, where Mr. Gifford will store them until the workday, which will most likely be around in mid-January. I will have approximately 7 total people there to help perform the work. So at least 2 adults and 2 adults that are youth protection trained. The main hazard of this project is potentially people falling off of ladders. I'll assign a scout to be the first aid officer, and he must have his first aid CPR certification. I will only allow 14 to 18-year-old scouts to go on a 6-foot ladder and install the diffuser. I'll also assign an adult spotter to every single scout on the ladder to make sure they don't fall. I will instruct all Scouts to wear safety glasses while working on the ceiling tiles. I will also instruct them on how to use the box cutter knives correctly, opening the boxes that contain the diffusers. To prevent the risk of COVID-19, I will require everyone to wear a mask and gloves in addition to social distancing to protect them during the workday. I will instruct them on how to properly put on and take off gloves, and I will instruct them to wash their hands properly. In conclusion, I'd like to please request your formal approval in order for me to move forward in this project. Does anyone have any questions?
Pardon me, any questions from the board members?
No, looks great.
Well, I'm on the Lady Grant Committee, so I should probably not vote.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay. So when will you hear from the Lighting Foundation, do you know?
So their deadline for submitting applications is the 25th of September, and it takes around a month for them to make a decision on when to decide if they're going to give you the funding they need. And I decided to do it in mid-January because I then have to fill out the project plan section of my paperwork, and then we have the holidays. So I thought mid-January was a good decision for the workday to happen.
I was an Eagle Scout and I understand your project, the benefit of the project, and appreciate you volunteering to do this. I guess I would maybe even ask Lauren if there's a shortfall in funding between the grant and, wouldn't we be in the position to cover that since it's improving our facilities?
I would say so, yes.
Okay. I don't know, anyone have any other questions?
I have a question on just the improvement for that, because I'm not anybody at surgery, I'm not a center, I don't know about choir and that kind of stuff. So is by hearing yourself, does that help just everybody under, with the quality and
It helps the singers evaluate their sound and to make improvements on what they did right, how they can do it better, and what they did wrong, and how they can improve on it.
okay,
It gives them a better experience too.
yeah, great.
Anyone else?
Oh, I see you're buying pizza too.
Yep.
Well, I guess, like I said at the beginning, not to hold things up here, but to help keep it moving, I would vote that we go ahead and approve this project and support any deficiency that comes short from the grant, and then let him proceed with this project. Would there be a second?
I second it.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to approve the project. All in favor, please raise your right hand. As abstaining, motion carried. Thank you.
Nice job.
Nice presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to our partners at DLR too, so.
Thank you.
All right, with that, Aaron, you're on next.
Good evening. Is it okay if I speak without this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I hear my muffled voice. Good to see everybody in person again. I know it's been a while. So, Dr. Forrest, and I believe you all have my handout, project update in your board documents. So, we will just kind of go through that and give you an update of where the high school bond project stands. So going through on the budget, there's really no changes to the monthly update form since we last met. We're currently evaluating the final GMP amount, so until that's presented here in a couple weeks, this amount on the report will remain the same. So I'm still tracking on budget, and we'll talk a little bit more about that process and how that's going in a minute. So substantial completion dates scheduled for the project. The summer utility work was completed on schedule on 8/12. That was the substantial completion date. And there actually will be a punch list performed with DLR and Schlegel on site on Wednesday of this week. So everything is going along well there. And then have listed the substantial completion dates for the remaining portions of the project. none of those have changed since our last update. Key deliverables, so not really much out there that, on the deliverables side of the project, the, GMP board package, we're going to meet on that tomorrow, with the county board and DLR to go through some final details, and that will be submitted to the board on the 17th, prior to the board meeting scheduled for the 23rd. And then I've got here the test drive classroom furniture. So this is a process we worked on with Scott Rice, who is the furniture partner on the project. They are going to be assembling some sample furniture and setting up in the high school for the remainder of the semester to give teachers and students a chance to try out different products, see what they like, before any final decisions are made on ordering. So that'll be on October 16th. That'll be delivered and set up in the chieftain room for use. So some other key milestone dates. We have the Board of Education GMP approval meeting, which will be on September 23rd. And that's a special board meeting to review the final contract amendment for McCown Gordon for the remainder of the improvements. The west site utilities, so some of the additional utility work and parking lot work to prepare for the Learning Center addition will start pretty much immediately following that approval. So hopefully if the approval is given on the 23rd, they'll start kind of mobilizing and getting that work going the next day. And then footings and foundations will start in around October 22nd. So we'll actually start digging holes and setting rebar and pouring concrete. So that'll be, and then right after that start setting steel. So you'll see things kind of start going vertical pretty soon. Looking out a little further ahead, there's some dates here through the rest of the project. Just they're going to do some work on the north parking lot, the existing student lot there, over next summer, and then have relocation when the new learning center is done, and the 2022 dates of the fitness and wellness center work. Any questions on any of those milestones or upcoming stuff?
At what point is there a forecast related to the spend once we get the GMP and, you know, knowing monthly what that spend is, as well as contingency allocations, you know, so that we understand, hey, the risk is behind us when it comes to owners and project contingency.
Yeah, you mean like just a curve of
Yeah.
how much we anticipate it to be?
Right, the spend on a
Drawdown
monthly
each
basis,
month.
drawdown, yeah.
Yeah. You know, we haven't really talked about doing that, but I can ask McCown to put that together with their GMP, to kind of show, you know, big things like when steel hits, you know, you see a spike and things like that.
Yeah.
They can kind of do that with their numbers.
Yeah, I don't know that it has to be, you know, if they hadn't planned on it, you know, but that's something that, for your report would be helpful, how we're trending with that on a month-to-month basis and and understanding, you know, percent complete, you know, and, you know, the, progress of the project, so.
Yeah, so another way I think I'd show it, I track that in the budget. And when all the draws are entered monthly, it shows, you know, remaining to complete for each portion of the project, construction
Right.
and furniture and. You know,
It's almost like a baseline, so you can see,
Yeah.
are we on track, or, you know,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
yeah, I think we can put something together like that for the report, for sure.
Okay.
All right, just going through some of the outstanding risks, issues, and changes, and some good news as well. So as I mentioned, the completion of the summer site work was done on schedule. So that was a big win to get through that really tricky area with all the utilities getting moved around. So it's a big win there. The GMP bid process and approval process. So bids were taken by the county board from subcontractors on the 27th, on August 27th, and they have been spending the last couple of weeks going through those bids, making sure that everybody has everything included, scoping them out. And I sat down, Bill Adams and I sat down and went through everything with them to kind of check some scope items and sort through some of the alternates that were in the bid. So we'll be reviewing that, like I said, tomorrow with Warren and his team, and presenting that to the board on the 23rd. So good news is that the bids and the budget are tracking very well. And I think we saw some of the advantages of the current market that the county board had kind of been tracking since the pandemic. So we should have some good alternates and cost options to discuss and present to the board on the 23rd. The building permit has been reviewed and approved by the city and the fire department. We're just waiting on them to call and say it's ready to pick up. So, but that's in good shape there. They didn't have any comments on that review, so we won't have any big changes that are required to the drawings based on their comments. The temporary parking lots have been constructed, were completed before school started. Worked with Lauren and his team on where they needed additional parking to make up for the parking that was taken away by the construction zone. So that's all been set up and I think it's being used pretty well.
Yeah, those look nice. I've parked in it twice already with the soccer. Well, for the games.
Yeah.
So, and I like that fence back there, that wire fence, and then the
Parking blocks.
parking blocks, those look real nice.
I think
Red parking blocks.
even additionally, we picked up a lot of parking to the south of Votech that we really didn't anticipate it being that level. And that was a big plus for our staff. So that's where they're parking, which opened up all that in the front more for student. So it's been a plus, real plus.
Yeah. Let's see, polished concrete. So I don't know if the other board members or you guys have
They
a chance
they
to look at this, but it's just something we've been working through with DLR on the finish. You know, there's 100 different finishes for polished concrete, and initially we've been talking based on budget about one finish called a salt and pepper, which is a little finer, and ended up going with this more aggregate finish that we thought would coordinate a little better if we have to do some extra grinding, like we talked about last month, in some of the existing slab areas that are not in great shape. So we asked DLR to bring a sample of what the final specification was. So if you guys see it later, it's the medium exposure is the one that they've currently selected for the finish of the new floors. So we're still kind of working based on that. Still need to work through some options for the slabs in the existing areas, and if those can be ground down a little bit more to get rid of some of those red or the white lines and holes from the old VCT glue. Site access communication to high school families. So county board has some construction signage up to try and direct their construction traffic to the right spots, and the students and families and public to their right spots. And I believe Mark and his team sent out a communication to all the students and families with a little map showing how the revised traffic flow would go. So that will be pretty much in place through the end of the school year and into the next school year until they finish up the learning center, and then things will shift and we'll have to put together a new plan. They'll be shutting down the north lot, and then when they start working over on the fitness and wellness, that'll have a whole nother plan to it. So we'll continue to keep everybody in the loop and keep the communication open. So last thing I wanted to talk about was the groundbreaking ceremony. So I've had this on the agenda here a couple times, so kind of narrowing in on the groundbreaking event. So wanted to talk to all the board members about ideas and thoughts for that event. Big things would be have a date in mind, really between now and about mid-October, before they actually start digging footings and have a whole bunch of equipment and crews out there. And then what that attendance would be. During the pandemic, we've seen a lot more of a invite-only event just to keep the number of people limited, and kind of organizing how that all happens. So if that's, board members, staff members, just need to come up with a list. And then if anybody wants to speak at the event or, do ceremonial shovel turns, kind of having a plan in place of agenda of how the event would go, so.
You have a backhoe there I can dig a hole in?
They will.
I've used a shovel enough in my life. I don't really care about a shovel.
No, but the town will have equipment out there that they can use as just kind of a backdrop, and if you wanna have a banner made, to put up there for photo ops, there's all kinds of options, and
Did you see Luke's email this afternoon concerning this?
not this afternoon, I sent you an email yesterday.
Well, he thought that we would all get together and start working on developing that plan.
Okay,
And I think we can do that.
okay. Yeah, if there's.
A pretty standard,
Specific input,
It'll probably be an invite only.
okay.
One thing that I just thought of on the reporting too is, as we get more into construction, would it be possible to have like, safety numbers presented, with regards to, just making sure there's transparency there, with regards to reporting and, near misses, and just to make sure that that's clear that there's an accountability for safety on the site and that's a priority for everyone.
Yeah, I know McAllen tracks that, and they have a system. I'm not exactly sure what all information it has in it, but I can ask them for a copy of their safety reporting, and I can include that, with what I present to the board.
Okay.
Okay. Jim, did you wanna talk about change order limits?
Yeah,
and that kind of thing?
I was gonna kind of bring that up. Justin and I met with Lauren and Aaron and Bill last week, and we just kind of talked through the GMP coming in and, where things are. I mean, and like she mentioned, there's some pretty positive signs, and they're still finalizing those numbers and things, but one thing we talked about was to keep the process moving and give Lauren some authority, but then allowing the board, setting some, I guess, parameters basically. If there's a change that needs to be made, that can be made in a cumulative amount. We're not really talking through setting anything tonight, but something to think on maybe for next week when we meet, whether that's, 50 items up to $50,000 or cumulative $250, and we could track on the sheet monthly, just so he doesn't have to run to it. We don't have to have a special meeting and hold up the project and things like that. I mean, right now they have, for our regular spending, they have authority up to $20,000, I think, or 25, whatever it is, the legal process. But I mean, it's just kind of something to think about on that end, and also, building in a number into the budget also that kind of allows some flexibility for, maybe not just our contract, just a hard dollar number. I mean, we're working on, we may contract with them for a higher amount that we could get back with no fee, just so that everything can kind of keep moving along and not have to come back to us every single time something is needed. But anyway, it's something for everyone, I guess, to kind of ponder and maybe add in a proposal and talk next week.
Is there something there that you've seen that is more typical without, with those goals in mind, how others have done that?
approval limit?
approval limits, you know, whether, because I could see a dollar amount on a per change or a total cumulative based upon, you know, contract value or percentages. There's a number of different ways you could probably do that. I just didn't know if there was.
Honestly, I've never had it where there was one person who had a certain limit to, and then, you know, have to go to, the bigger approval level. So, you know, on this project, like Jim said, with the current state of the GMP and the overall project funds, I think, you know, we've been talking through some district-wide goals that Lauren and his team has for taking care of some other, quality issues and construction issues in the district. So I think as you dig into those and wanna implement those, you know, some of them could have some higher dollar values to it. But I think in like day-to-day type of changes, I mean, 50,000 for a single change order limit would cover just about anything in terms of, a small change in the project that's just clarifying something or, you know, changing something that just taking a second look at it, wanted to be done a different way, so. You know, and I think one of the things we talked about was setting a limit, like a $250,000 total aggregate, but that could be moved as.
Come back to the board, I mean, once if you hit that, then you gotta come back and we kinda catch up, I mean, and then building something into the tracking report that kinda captured some of that as well.
My main, for me, my priority would be a transparent process so that, you know, there's a lot of things that could be, that, you know, meet the criteria to be a part of the bond, right? And there's things that could come up where, you know, there would be additional scope added that would qualify for the bond stuff, but I also don't want there to be a perception that we're adding things that without reason or that without vetting it and have, even if it's approved by Lauren, that there's some reporting back as far as here's the things that were considered, here's what we looked at, here's why we did it at this point in time. That would be my thing is.
Yeah, and I think things that are totally new that weren't in the original scope are things that we needed, that are working on kind of a list and we can prioritize and we'll be able to approve those. I think that intent anyway, is whether it's making the, between two options, or one's a little more quality and it
Right.
costs more and we have the funds, let's take the best one, or
But something like.
not something totally new that
Yeah.
wasn't thought of before, but.
Okay, that's
Yeah. Because if there's something like, you know, we get into demo of the existing high school building and come across something that didn't know was there, that has to be removed. You know, that, let's say it's $25,000.
Yes.
That has to be done, and that's the kind of thing we wanna be able to make a decision on quickly, and Lauren have the authority to make that decision on, to be done within the scope of the project.
Right.
But yeah, like the things that are true, you know, additional HVAC replacement, or something that, you know, that would be outside of what the original scope was, that would be, put together and presented.
There's a time component there to where if it's on, if it messes with critical path,
Yeah,
then that's a sensitive thing.
yeah.
So would it make sense to have those things emailed, you know, just FYI, this has come up, and then kind of a 24-hour deadline or 12-hour deadline where if any board members had any input that they felt like needed to be communicated, that they would know, okay, I need to respond to this in the next 12 hours, or you know, whoever has the authority to make the thing. I mean, I don't know if that's necessary, I'm just
Yeah.
throwing that out there.
Well, and I think that's the intent of giving a certain limit of, approval authority to Lauren. So there can be that one direct contact for something that is time sensitive or schedule sensitive. That Lauren and I could present it to Lauren, and he have all the information and understand all the sides of it to make a decision. But if there's something that goes above that threshold, then even if it's time sensitive, we need to find a way to get it to the board for approval.
We've been known to have a special meeting or two.
Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with giving the, administration or coroner, whoever that is, that authority. If we can, kind of define what the priorities are so that things are evaluated, that we're in agreement with how things will be evaluated, right? Quality improvements, if there's a value add option, what that looks like. Because the more that we're on the same page with that, then the more I'm willing to let, the administration run with it, because then we're all on the same page with
Yeah.
evaluations.
I mean, that's kind of the point, I think, is to give them that full authority. I do think maybe it's to spending a little more time on the defining what it is, so that there's accountability. It was
Yeah.
for the purpose in the scope, upgrade or time-sensitive need.
And then, once the project gets going and those kind of changes are happening, my board report would also include some sort of an accounting of changes and how those were processed too, so, that's something that you guys would have visibility to at every board meeting. So, yeah, like Jim said, I don't think we wanna make a decision tonight, just wanted to talk about it, because it will be part of the presentation on the 23rd. Especially the idea of going ahead and including, kind of an owner allowance in McAllen's GMP that just makes the paperwork approval process a little smoother, when there are things that come up, like an unforeseen condition as you're trying to demo a building, and you gotta get that approved quickly. And like Jim said, it would be set aside. I talked about it with McAllen on last Friday, and we've got an idea of how that gets set aside, so it's purely the district's money. If it doesn't get used, you get it back 100% with no attached fees or anything else. So it would just be including that for counties.
So that would be included in the GMP, or would that be like a contingency fund? Because I'm
Yes.
not sure how it's different than a contingency.
It is a contingency,
Oh, okay.
just within their GMP instead of held, held on the district side under the soft costs. So it just makes incorporating a change into the project a little bit smoother.
Okay, so, we would still control it even though
Yes.
it's, okay,
Yes,
yeah,
really just becomes a paperwork thing at that point. But,
okay.
And I don't know if even the limit on Lauren, I mean, I think the limit we were talking about for Lauren, probably not something we would have to have approved next, we're just approving the GMP, they're not necessarily turning dirt. We could probably have till our October meeting to kind of get that defined, but I just kind of want to start talking and thinking about it, or maybe, you have to build that into the contract?
Yeah, if we want to put it in the GMP, it'll need to be part of what's approved on the 23rd.
Okay.
So I think what,
You're talking about the contingency, not the approval process.
right.
Yeah, no, I meant the approval
Oh,
process,
sorry.
not the contingency.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. Yeah, the approval process can come later,
I mean, we don't wanna, we need to get it done, but
yeah, can always run into something in the dirt
Right,
that we found out.
and if we can add a number and we decide there's nothing to preclude us from having an amendment on to the
Yeah.
GMP at any point in time, okay?
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So at the during the interview process, I don't remember which company spoke about the component of allowing students to kind of tour, what's going on and kind of be a part of that.
Yeah.
So has that process been thought out or implemented, or like how does that look in reality?
We have not talked about it, but I have done that with McAllen on several other projects, specifically at K-State. They brought students on for class tours or something, so I think if there's a desire to do that, if there's a specific type of class that's something that would apply to something that's going on the site, that could definitely be arranged. They're really good about doing that.
Well, I mean, I feel like, just personally, I feel like it's a hands-on I mean, that's like missing that education for kids that are interested in those types of occupations would be sad,
Yeah.
that they didn't have that opportunity. And, so anyway, I would hope, I think that was something that was, proposed during the interview process, and it, makes sense to me and kind of makes me excited. So I want to do it.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I don't know if that's something the administration wants to.
We have, I mean, we don't have definite plans, but we have some ideas on how we can get kids involved, either through McCown Gordon or DOR.
Yeah.
So,
Once, I mean, it's a little bit
I'm
tough
happy
now.
to
It's,
help
I mean,
too.
right now,
Especially,
it's tough to do anything, but
Any women
maybe in
in
the spring.
programs.
So, I mean, you have idea, like, when do we get to find out about those ideas?
Well, the biggest thing right now is most of DLR and McCown Gordon are not working from their offices. And we would love to take a group of kids to those places, like DLR, do a tour, have some of our architects talk about how the process that they did for our scope. That would be pretty exciting, and I know they would be good hosts for that. But, I mean, we just can't even do that right now. I couldn't even set a date.
Right.
But that was kind of our plan. And then I know that McCown Gordon has a system where they try to get some of the vocational classes, especially the design classes involved in that process. So, but right now, we don't have anything. I'm supposed to meet with Luke Dietz here in the next couple of weeks to talk about some of those things.
Well, I can see where it'd be interesting for us to start the day with the initial meeting and rigging plans, or, if they're putting steel up, with the planning that goes into that, the communication coordination, and then see it actually happen, some of that day with
And I think we need to find out what students would benefit the most from those types of activities. Because I'm not even sure, what CTE classes would benefit.
And
What's
there's
this
gonna
graphic
be-
design?
There's gonna be some certain restrictions in place probably too, from the county and what they can do.
On site.
With COVID and stuff on site.
Yes.
So, maybe
Distancing,
smaller,
yes.
smaller groups.
But it's definitely our goal to get students involved and learn more while we have this opportunity.
Safely.
Right.
The what?
I mean,
Get them involved safely.
Yeah.
could it possibly be, a component of it possibly be as simple as, I don't know if in high school they make overhead announcements. I know they do in middle school, but I don't know. But, so like on our sheet, when they're setting steel, the day they're setting steel, like it might be interesting for the students to know what's going on outside. Like they're, it's all covered, but it might be I think, maybe I'm crazy. But
No, I think that's great food for thought as far as.
Right, like, hey, this is an exciting day for THS because today we're setting steel, which is the foundation, or whatever, I don't even know the words, but.
Yeah.
Just having that communication with them so they feel a part of it along the way. Because I know some of the stuff is on Facebook, the updates and the pictures and everything, but, Facebook's not necessarily something that high school kids look at. It's more for,
It's just
right?
for us old people.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see how we explore all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, is there do you guys have my kids use Canvas, or it's like a school board that all the kids go to for,
Right.
okay.
Maybe we should.
I don't, we'll have to.
Sorry.
Thanks, Aaron.
I'll stay behind. Okay, so yeah, we'll see you all on the 23rd, and to present the GMP. And like I said, that package will be coming out the 17th, probably late on the 17th. But once you get it, if there's any questions before the board meeting, shoot them my way, because if we make any adjustments or change anything, before we come with the final GMP to approve, that would be good.
Jim, would you like to have, if there's questions, send it to you or somebody that?
I mean, copy Lauren and
Yeah.
Aaron, and if you copy me, that'd be great, just
Yeah.
so I
This-
kinda know, but.
Aaron and I, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's
I
fast.
mean-
Yeah, if there's little things in there that we can, change or clarify better before we get to the final presentation, that would hopefully make that night go smoother.
So Aaron,
And I'm shorter.
do you want,
I was gonna say shorter, but,
do the board members want to see these samples of the salt and pepper? Okay, all right, then I'll hang on to them and I will get them.
yeah, DLR, I think Rob, well, I don't know if Robin will be out here Wednesday or not.
Just let me know.
But,
They were pretty specific about wanting them back.
bring them back. Yeah, I say just hang on to
Yeah,
them
okay.
and they'll be out here.
Is this
Yeah.
in your?
The-
That is what it is.
The
yes.
larger one is the one we're going with, the larger, medium aggregate,
All
as
right.
opposed to the salt and pepper.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Good to
Aaron.
see everyone in person again.
All right, any other questions before we,
Get out of here, if you have nothing else for me.
thanks Aaron for the update. All right, with that, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried unanimously. Public comment, was there any public comments? Okay, we'll move on to reports then. Lauren?
Okay, on my report, I just have a few things, but one of the things that Mr. Bothwell had asked me to kind of address was just some of our reopening thoughts, both positive and negative, and without making a long list, we've had some great successes, but we've also had some experiences where we had to reevaluate and back up a little bit and take another run at it. I think some of the things that I'm probably the most proud of is the work that I think the leadership teams at both administrative level, building level, staff level, the effort that they have put into trying to make this as safe as possible has been remarkable. And so I'm very pleased with the work of all our people, that understanding that the situation we're in is you know, unlike anything that we've ever experienced. So we daily, I will get, and I was talking to Drew Friday night at the ballgame, and he's heard some of the same things. We're getting some very positive feedback, maybe on remote, which we didn't know, you know, how that would go so well, but some notes from parents just expressing how appreciative they are of the remote learning opportunities, and I think maybe the attentiveness of the staff. You know, it's a higher bar than it was in the spring. I think from listening to my building principals that we've gotten off to a good start as far as you know, all three building levels, and you know, the students are excited to be back in school. I mean, maybe more so at the elementary level, I don't know. I mean, I can't say that for certain, but those kids they're so excited to be back in school, and it's very noticeable. Frustration, I mean, we could probably go back and forth. The inconsistency that we've seen across the board with quarantining, not to quarantine, county to county, and it has been off the charts. And because I visit with superintendents at least once to twice a week across Kansas, and you don't get the same answer from anyone on what's going on in Miami County or Douglas County or whatever, take your pick. But I will say this, I think Jamie Miller, our Leavenworth County Health Director, has been very, very supportive and helpful for us over the last couple of weeks. And he has a couple of people on staff that we've been in contact with repeatedly. Just spell out a scenario. What should we do about quarantining? What should we do about, do we need to send these people home? Can they come back? And they've been great on that. So that's a daily occurrence. And so, I mean, every morning we have to address that. I think people have been very flexible and for the most part patient as this process has unfolded, okay? I mean, I really mean that, parents and staff and even the students. So that kind of plays into, you know, part of the excitement. I think if I look back on this a little bit, the communication piece, I've told Mr. Bothwell and Drew the other night that you never can communicate enough to all levels. It could be the community, the staff, or whoever, and that has been you know, something that we've thought about a lot, and how we do communicate effectively and consistently as a district. So, I mean, I feel pretty strongly about that. Tanya and I visit quite a bit about that and how we can improve that and help move forward. She's got, I mean, I know Tanya has some things that she's gonna talk about, but that would probably be, you know, my biggest, I'd be false in saying that this wasn't one of the toughest things I've ever experienced in my educational career, and wanting to make the right decisions as we move forward, and just knowing that there's not the perfect answer. So I feel like we're in a good place at this point in the school year, knock on wood, big time. But that's kind of where I'm at. And if you have any questions, yeah, Dustin.
So I didn't get a chance to research it, I just saw it before the meeting, but it looked to me like Leavenworth County changed the way they're doing their
Yeah.
math on the percent positive.
Yes, they did that about 2.5 weeks ago.
So they changed their grading criteria 2.5 weeks ago. I think today they changed the way they're, I think they changed the denominator.
Yes.
So my ask would be, could you guys look into?
Yeah, I saw that middle column at 6 point whatever, and it didn't make sense to me.
So I think they changed the way they're doing their calc.
And we met with Jamie this morning, and he didn't, that was, I mean, I'm not, it just wasn't mentioned.
Well, maybe could you guys look into it?
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think we approved gating criteria with one understanding of how the math worked. If the math has changed, I'm not saying we need to change anything, but we just ought to be informed about whether we should change something. So
I'm curious too,
if
how
you
we.
guys could look into it and let
Yeah,
us know which.
I'm curious how we arrived at that number, because we did have a little bit of an uptick in the numbers, so.
So what I saw, and admittedly it was on social media, it was kind of a last minute thing, so take that for what it's worth, but it looked to me like they changed the denominator,
Okay, I'll look.
so.
They're counting every single negative case. My understanding, again, this had to be confirmed, is if an individual got tested twice, they're now counting 2 of those negatives versus that person doing negative. So it increases the number of
Lowers the
it increases
positive.
it increases the number of tests total taken, which is where the denominator goes up and the percentage goes down. I don't know if there's any right or wrong, it's just a different.
Was this the Chiefs? They get a test every day? I mean, people are taking more than one test in 2 weeks?
And again, I'm not
It's
suggesting.
such a fun test.
I think Drew said, you know, I don't think there's a right or wrong to it, but, you know, we adopted a set of gating criteria based on one set of math. If there's a new set of math, we ought to at least
Well, we're certainly finding out that this is a very fluid situation.
I get it.
And it seems like every other day, it's something a little different. And it could be coming from Johnson County, it could be coming from other counties. They're looking at different options, they're looking at different ways to look at quarantining or not quarantining or contact tracing. But I am curious, Justin, about those numbers, because I saw that right
You know, just next
a
time.
little after 5 o'clock.
Next time you talk to Jamie and let
Yes,
us know.
I will. His email to me is, Lauren, we're still in yellow. I mean, that was the email I got, so, okay. Thank you. Anything else? Okay.
One other quick thing,
Yeah.
on the consent agenda, there was a approval for the Spark funding.
Yes.
Have we spent all that money?
We're just about down, I checked with Lori, and what did you tell me, we were down to how much?
About
Yes, and that will be spent down rather quickly here before. And it doesn't, we have to show receipts before September 30th, Lori?
I think they just have to be purchased before that date.
Yeah.
But I have a little more time to submit for reimbursement.
We were going to visit with, I don't know if you had a chance to visit with Forrest. There's always some technology that we could possibly look at, maybe we'll visit. But that will be zeroed out by the end of the month. There won't be any money returned, guarantee it.
We paid it, might as well get it.
Okay, sorry. Moving on, the temporary bus parking, you might have seen we're parking, I think right now we have about 6 buses over here by the water tower. That worked out well. We have 3 buses almost parked permanently behind the VOTEC building, right? They're just sitting there. They're the older buses. And we're got fuel over here by the little wooden storage shed. It's a little congested with the flow, but it's working. And Jill seems to be, pretty pleased with it. The drivers are working through it. It's not perfect, but it's worked out a lot better than I had hoped. So we're good. We're real good. And I did recontact the people at the Fair Board and thank them for their time and effort. So I have reached back to them. I put this little list in here just so you all know that I kind of live on Zoom meetings during the middle of the week, and without traveling, either Tuesdays, Thursdays, whenever, there's always Zoom meetings lined up for us to hear from other superintendents, from state officials, KSD, KSSA, doesn't matter. Jamie's been great. Like I said, Jamie Miller's been great to contact with us. We had a very good meeting with him this morning for about 35, 40 minutes, which basically my building principals asked questions. And he had his staff there to help answer. And I thought that was real positive. So a lot of good things going on there, but just, a number of meetings that take place to gather information. You probably have heard already now, but the KSD, it's Kansas Department of Agriculture came up with this surprise free meal situation that it was a pretty easy process for Barb to fill out, but we were glad that she did. And I'm not even sure how many schools in Kansas, but I would assume most all. I don't know why they wouldn't apply for this, but through December 22nd, we'll be having free meals for all that want that, and I think that's a real plus. And I mean, the people that have prepaid, it'll just carry over till spring, and because it's going to end right before Christmas on the 22nd. But
that includes breakfast too, right?
yeah, and curbside pickup for remote, so we're pretty pleased with it. Knock on wood, if we did have to go all remote, we would reevaluate that whole process, how we would get meals, but we're not there yet. So, and then just a quick reminder about the September 23rd special board meeting for the GMPs. So that's all I have.
All right. Tanya?
All right. I wanted to give you just a quick update on enrollment numbers. This is not the official count, so it will change next week when we have the count, and that's on the 21st this year of September. And there are all kinds of weightings and things that go into that, so that's a whole different story. And I'll report on our enrollment numbers, the official count next regular meeting in October. But what we have so far, TES is down, obviously. We're down at 772, middle school 473, high school 605, for a total of 1850. I did include those numbers that we have students from our building attending other buildings for special services. That was 6 additional students at the elementary and 8 for the high school, so that leaves us with a total of 1864. We're not too far off of where we were in the past. Most of our numbers we're seeing, students are either being, and this is mostly elementary again, students are being homeschooled. We have some who are doing virtual from another virtual program instead of our remote. So Lawrence Virtual, Manhattan, Basehor Linwood, other established virtual programs that were in place prior to COVID. And those are the numbers. Most of those families have told us they're coming back after the pandemic, so we hope to reabsorb those numbers.
What was the number last year? So 1864 compared to?
You know what, I didn't even bring
Not
that.
1956.
About 120.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little over 100.
And it'll be different with the count numbers, because those are figured a little bit differently. This is basically just head count, counting actual heads. So the FTE is different, and I'll report that next month and how that works and how that's figured.
So on a per student basis, what's the funding difference there?
Funding is 4,000.
500. The
Yeah.
problem is, next year, we will be able to use this last year's numbers. It's 2 years down the road that if our kids all come back next year, we'll be fine. But if they don't come back, it could cause a budgetary issue because of the funding, the 4552, I can't remember exactly what.
Simple math is $5,000 a kid.
But keep in mind, the funding though is based on FTE.
Mhm.
And so our preschoolers don't count as a full kid, they count as a half a kid. So it's, and I'll explain that next month and what the difference will be.
So the enrollment number is like a 3-year average?
2 year.
2-year average.
Yeah, 2 year. It used to be 3. Now
So,
it's
so
2.
this year.
We're
is the
using last year's.
Last year and 2 years ago.
Yes.
Okay, so the next school year and the one after that would be in.
Right. Right. But we'll be fine as long as our numbers bounce back. I mean, that's the way every school in the state is, unless the State Department comes up with the second head count like in spring and February. I mean, a lot of people are asking for that, but I don't know if that'll happen.
It's a lot of work on their part.
Yeah, I'm just not sure they'll do it. But that's what the military does, for example, for Leavenworth, they have a second head count, Fort Riley has a second head count. But I'm not assuming, but we are very much hoping that everybody comes back, and then it won't be an issue.
But, I mean, it would just be less of an issue.
Less of it.
Right.
That's a good word.
Well, and we also had a large 5th grade class move up to the middle school into 6th grade, and then we had a small kindergarten class come in. So right there, it was kind of an odd, we knew we were losing some anyway, so.
Because I think our kindergarten's still around 112 or 113. And, we'd like to see that number up in the 140s.
I think you could probably anticipate a big class next year if things are okay. There's probably a lot that didn't send them this year.
Hold them
Yes.
back. Or didn't push them as early if you could.
Yeah, very well could be. I agree.
So it could be an extra large class.
All right, moving on, the reopening update, I didn't want to update too many things because things, as we've said, are very fluid. We up-to-date our documents frequently on the website, so anytime we have an update to something or a new form, we just put it right on the website. Any major updates, we send out information to parents or have them check the website. We are continuing to refine our procedures. We have discovered that we can make all the procedures we want and we think, yep, this is it, it's following all these guidelines, and then we have something come up, we have a COVID case, and we go, oh, well, that doesn't fit because health department told us this and this. What we've discovered is it's good to have a plan, but the health department's really going to lead us and tell us what to do. And that's just the case. Every case is different. They analyze every COVID case very differently. I mean, they analyze it much the same, but they're also different because families are different. We live differently. We do things differently. We associate. We move around the country and in the community differently. It's just different. So we've had to adjust and had to realize that, yeah, it's great to have these procedures, but some of them have been chucked out the window. We have been working continuously with the health department. We are on the phone with them multiple times a day, and we follow to the letter what they tell us. So they've been a very good partner in this. And they've said as well, every situation is different. We just have to roll with it. Remote learning has been going well. We've had a few issues technology-wise, not necessarily of our own. We always have kinks that we work through, but these companies, Seesaw, Google Classroom, Zoom, whatever you're using, everybody's using them at once now. And these companies are getting hit like they did in the spring. So we've had to make a few adjustments. We have dealt with whatever tech issues that we've had. Midco has had a couple issues in the past few days. They've gone down. Something was hit in Lawrence. Something was cut in Baser today. So that.
Yeah, we had fiber damage in Lawrence on Friday, and then today Midco had a fiber cut up like Baser that affected us.
Yeah. So, those are things that are out of our control we can't deal with, but we've handled whatever has been sent our way that we can. We do know there are still families who do not have internet at home. We have done what we can through hotspots to provide for them, but realistically, there are some homes that hotspots don't work. I have been speaking with the public library here in town. They have altered their hours, so they're closed at some points during the day, and some of their areas are blocked off. But we have asked them if there's a way we can have a partnership where some of these kids who just don't have any access at home, if we could bring them in a safe environment at the library with secluded areas, so there's just one or two kids, and they said absolutely. So we will work out that partnership with them and figure out when we can bring kids in, where they will be safe, where the parents feel comfortable having them, and that will help our families also. Instead of, we've offered our access in the parking lots, and the library's offered that too, but having that space where they can come in and feel safe and there's not a lot of people around, we think that's going to be a really good partnership.
How many students or families currently fit into that category?
I was speaking with the high school Friday, and they have maybe 4 or 5 students who have no hope of any internet access, and they are needing something. And so we were searching for those kids. They would have the ability to drive themselves in. It'd be a good partnership for them, much easier for them. We could provide them lunch and breakfast also. That is definitely workable. We're working on that. I don't know how many middle and elementary school kids that involves, but the library has different spaces and areas that we can utilize, even if we had to bring them in at rotating times.
So what is the number, or what are the numbers for remote versus in person?
We have about a classroom at each grade level, and that ranges anywhere from 12 students to 30 some students at each grade level. I can bring those exact numbers. We've had some kids.
I know at
transition.
one time, like the senior class had around 46, but I think that number has dropped.
It's
That's our
changed.
biggest number.
It's changed drastically within just the past few days. We've had some students who maybe started remote, and for whatever reason, it would not work for that family. And we said, we don't want you to change. What decision you make is for the semester. But in certain cases, there are some families that it just wasn't going to work for them, and we're not going to make them stay at home an entire semester and not receive an education. So we have maneuvered some kids back into school, but I can bring those numbers next time as well and let you know per grade level how many.
The overall percentage, is it 10%?
It's higher. It's probably
higher.
closer to 16.
16?
Yeah, it was 17 at one point.
I think it's around 16.
I'll have to figure it again with all the changes.
It's not as high as 20. I mean, I think the highest we were thinking was around 18, but I think it's dropped originally. So that it's in that area.
So for the kids that don't have any internet option, obviously we're doing everything we can to try to close that gap. I mean, we're a week into the school year. How far do we go before we just say this remote is not going to work for you? You either come back to the building, or
That's a good question.
You can't go 2-3 months trying to figure it out, and you don't figure it out, and then all of a sudden they're
Right. Well, our teachers have been doing everything they can to provide something for those kids, so they're not just left out. They're not sitting at home doing absolutely nothing right now. There have been some paper packets, not many, and those definitely aren't the way to go, but teachers have been supplementing with how they've worked with the students. Hopefully we get the library partnership up and going really soon so we can serve those kids, but we can't force them. If we say, hey, remote's not working for you, you gotta come to school, and they don't feel comfortable, we just can't
I think we need to find out, you know, this
I
for
know,
each
we
building.
also can't say you passed the third grade if you didn't do anything.
Right.
So,
Right, how are they getting in their 6.5 hours or 6 hours of school then if they're not
Right. The ones that we
receiving
know are,
direct instruction at all?
right, the ones we know that are connecting remotely are receiving that. The high school and middle school especially are doing things live, so the middle school teachers have a period in their day where they are just teaching remote. So they have an empty classroom, it's them teaching their remote students at home. The high school is doing it simultaneously, they found that to work really well. Elementary kind of varies by grade level. There's some live teaching, some recorded. Every teacher though touches base with these students every day in some format. And they take attendance live, and we just learned from KSDE today they're doing away with remote learning logs totally. So nobody has to do those now. And we had already scrapped that anyway because we were doing the live and taking attendance daily, so we didn't have to do this. But they've scrapped them altogether. But yes, we are staying on top of all of those students who are maybe having some connectivity issues. They're working with parents as well, so.
Don't they still have to connect 3 times during the day? I thought they had to do a check-in 3 times during the day.
They do, for elementary, I know they definitely do a check-in morning, afternoon, but then they also have the teaching going on at other times. So there's several times a day where they're checking in with the students.
As we modify what we're doing, you know, with some of the stuff, is our policy or documentation online getting updated to reflect that then?
Yes, as soon as.
And we need to look over that.
Right, as soon as we realized that the remote learning logs, that we didn't have to do that, I went and updated all of the documents online to take out all the logs, any mention of the logs or requirements for that, so that should be up to date as well. Once we get a partnership established with the library and have that information, we'll have that online as well.
How many students did we have transfer in?
I don't have the number.
I do not know that, I could find out, but some of them were for sports, but they moved here, so they're legit move-ins, purchased homes, and some of them just moved here for jobs, or, and so it's hard to tell why they moved here, or.
Well,
I was just wondering, I was just curious.
No, I really don't know. We've looked at that. We've had them at all levels.
Uh-huh.
I was just gonna say that there's some kids that they were saying moved in here for sports, but actually, when you talk to them, they say that they didn't wanna do remote learning, they wanted to be in person.
Mhm.
And so I think some of that, you know, who knows? I mean, welcome. Like, who cares why they're here?
Absolutely.
The final
Welcome to our
answer is
community.
they had to be a bona fide, they had to move. They had to buy
Yeah.
houses here.
And they have younger siblings attending here also?
But I'll ask.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
at the library, who's doing the supervision for the students and who'd be under like high school age, I guess is what.
That's what we need to work out. Nicole, the library director, is on vacation this week, so we started the conversation Friday, and we've got some of her staff members looped in on it this week, but she will be back at the end of the week or at the beginning of next week, so we can wrap up some final things. So we're still working those things out.
Yeah, because you talk about discipline and things.
Well, just supervision and then,
Responsibility.
yeah, who's
Yes.
responsible for those
Right.
kids?
I think we were, in our initial discussion, we were talking about splitting that, you know, having a library staff person assigned to kind of oversee the room, the area, and then having, you know, one person from the school coming in frequently to check and monitor. We'll work on that. There's a lot that has to be figured out. All right, the only other thing I put on here, professional development, as you know, we changed our calendar and we took all of our PD days and moved them to the front of the school year. These are some of the topics that we covered during professional development. A lot of this stuff, there's a lot there. Some levels did different things than others, so this was kind of a compilation of all different buildings. So one building may not have done all the things on this list, so on and so forth. And so that's what we've done so far this year.
question.
For the school closure thing that's on your report,
Yes.
we don't need to go into details, but I assume there's a boatload of logistics around all those closures that are checked off somewhere.
Yes. The Leavenworth County, I have those two columns, Leavenworth County Health Department closure and then our closure. The difference between those two really would be, one, the Leavenworth County Health Department would determine if and when we needed to close by the numbers. If we had to close ourselves, basically what this would be we'd have a large number of teachers and or students out that we just couldn't really have school, and we would make that determination to go ahead and close down. But likely the health department would be involved in that decision as well. We don't want to set a specific number of teachers or number of students because again, that's so fluid. A lot of these students who are going home being quarantined are not sick at all. So they're participating in remote learning while they're home. So we don't count them as absent because they're still participating in learning. So teachers, we have some teachers who have been quarantined and they've been teaching from home. So it's, you know, it's like they're not gone and we're still continuing to go on. But if we have a large number of folks who are ill and can't teach or participate, we don't have enough subs to handle the buildings, then that's when we would look at a closure.
And then on the bottom box talks about TES will need 2 school days to organize materials.
Yes.
So for those 2 school days, would they still be on site?
The teachers would, the students would not.
So I really struggle, you know, we're not closed today. Presumably we have hopefully days or weeks or maybe even months to plan for if we did close. I really struggle with what happens in those 2 days that we couldn't compress that down to 1 day or no days. And then I also, if we do have to not teach for 2 days, do we have to do additional days in May or June to make up for it? My assumption is yes, we would. So
Justin,
I guess I'd like to know what we do with the 2 days and what we're doing to plan so that it's not 2 days, it's 1 day or 0 days.
we discussed that quite a bit. The reason we came up with 2 days was just the turnaround for the students and their parents to make that coverage. Even though you can warn everybody that you're gonna, you know, that we may need some coverage and we're just concerned that they may not be able to pull that off in just 1 day. Now, we could be wrong. They may be able to do that in 1 day. But to probably play it safe, that's why we went with the 2. It wasn't so, I think our teachers can turn that around quickly. I'm just not sure about coverage.
Part of it too is our middle school and high school kids take their Chromebooks home already. That's a part of how they do things. Our elementary kids do not. So we can logistically give them a Chromebook really quick and say, stuff this in your backpack and take it home. But there'll also be other supplies that they'll need to take home. There's gonna be books, workbooks, colored pencils, you know, you name it, manipulatives, whatever, and those have to be gathered up and ready to go. And I think we're in a pretty good position where we have a plan for how we do that, but depending on how much notice we get, you know, it may take us 2 days.
I think the situation.
Because if we're not able to send things home with the kids that day,
I get it.
then the parents will have to come through and pick things up and.
So if they had two non-learning days, we would have to make those up somewhere.
Not necessarily. If our middle school and high school was continuing on and we only had the 2 days, then we could continue on. We do have some snow days built into our calendar, so we can count those. As long as we have the minimum number of hours we can get through. If we were short on days, if we had run out of days, we might have to make those up.
I just think that as you guys are meeting with the building leadership, at every opportunity, we ought to think through what are the things that we can do to eliminate those 2 days of.
I think we were just.
It may not be possible. It may be possible to go from 2 days to 1 day. I just think as the planning continues and as we learn more about this, I think that's something that we ought to challenge ourselves on.
Yeah. No, that was discussed, it really was, because we were just trying to be practical.
I get it. I
So
get it.
that's where it came.
Well, I appreciate you also thinking about the constraints of parents and
Yeah.
that side of things. I think for us, it'd be like, to Justin's point, if we could figure out how we could not be the limiting factor right there, if we needed to, if we could go less, and then because the parents were constrained, then we were delaying it because of us and working with the community.
Yeah. Let's be honest, if it was on Friday, we'd have more time.
Yeah.
No, sure.
Just little things like that.
And like I said, I am not, I get the logistics and I think you're exactly right. I mean, there'd be kids, elementary kids that if they didn't have the school supplies that they came here with, they may not have anything at home to go. So I get all that. I just think that's an area where we ought to constantly challenge ourselves. How do we get that from 2 days to 1 day, from 1 day to 0 days, and get it to where ultimately we could do just what the high school and middle school do?
I think if we see those numbers jumping, we gotta have that.
We do already have, our elementary school has been practicing. They have a rotational schedule where they have recess duty, not recess duty, and the days they don't, they are practicing with their students on, if we had to go remote, here's what our class would look like, here's what we would do. So they do have that plan in place. I mean, we're getting ready as much as we can be.
Yeah.
Sounds like that might be 2 days or less.
Yes.
Is more, I mean,
That's
what I-
worst case scenario, I think, is the 2 days.
I just struggle with, you know, if we're 60 days from having to do this, you can do a lot of planning in 60 days.
Yes.
And so and some of it you can plan around, some of it you can't plan around. Anything that we could plan around, anything that we could do to eliminate us as the bottleneck, I think would be a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Good point.
I have a question about the dyslexia training, the state mandated.
Yes.
Dyslexia training. So now that the teachers have been trained to recognize dyslexia, and they say 1 in 5 kids fits somewhere on that spectrum of dyslexia, is the school developing a plan then? Because you're gonna see probably more people saying, oh, I think I have a child that potentially has dyslexia. So what's the plan that we're gonna put in place to, like, kind of work with those kids if they do?
We purchased the Sonday program, which is for Gillingham, and it's like, it is like a phonics program, but it's widely well known as dyslexia, the perfect program for dyslexia. We have already had our reading recovery, our title reading teachers trained in that, and our special education teachers, they are currently using it. We have now purchased it for the elementary, and we had our teachers trained. We do have some also at the middle school who are being trained to use that. So they use it at the middle school more with their students who are in the reading assist programs. And we have our special ed teachers there too. So we already have those built-in things into place that we can use with those students. And then if we need further, you know, we obviously go through the SIT team process, collecting the data and, you know, served by title teachers and then special education if needed. But I feel like we have a good plan in place with that. We are currently looking more into our testing and to see if we have exactly what the state wants in that. We have a little more time to decide that, but you know, I think we're gonna need maybe something else to supplement that, but we have some things in place already.
Yeah, that'd be my question too, like middle school, even potentially early high school kids coming in that there may have been an issue for them that maybe wasn't recognized until now. And like,
Right.
are we developing a plan for how to deal with those kind of students that might need some real immediate assistance and?
Yes, yes, and you know, we have the big initial training and then we'll have the yearly training also, and I'm anxious to see what KSDE comes out for the yearly renewal training. If we can take some of those pieces and maybe make it a richer training that we can take further with our staff instead of just the identification piece.
any other questions? All right, thank you, Tanya. Guess we'll move into action items. 5.1, we already approved. You don't need us to reapprove that or anything, do you? All right. We've got 5.2, bus purchase. Lori,
Yeah,
revisit a little bit?
yeah, no, it's fine. Come on up, Lori. She has, I think, a handout for you to help explain what some of the advantages are.
Yeah, the
Is it in there?
the bid sheet.
Oh, I see it, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and then there should also be considerations for bus purchases.
Yeah, it's here.
Is that in there? Okay, good.
Oh.
I didn't.
So
Something
there's
new
just, oh.
Something new added?
Ask us.
Did you add that later today?
Yeah.
All right, I didn't see it earlier.
Well,
Sorry,
so,
yeah, it's real short.
so when Lori and I went to have our budget approved in July, I guess it was, Dale Dennis, the finance guru, suggested that we take a hard look at taking advantage of bus depreciation for a variety of reasons and to help maybe improve our fleet. You know, he always asks, do you guys lease or do you have your own buses? What kind of shape are they in? So that's the process that started all this. And he actually made a suggestion of buying 4 buses, but he didn't know our situation, so we're not going down that road. One thing that I asked, we budget for 1 new bus every year, and it takes at least 6 months to get it. We could use that. I mean, I would like to get that process started. And once we started looking at it, we felt like we were maybe in the position to even increase that to 2 buses this year at some point. It doesn't have to be tonight, but at some point. And Lori kind of did some work, made some phone calls. And what did you come up with, just to kind of explain the advantage of?
So yeah, you can see, there's just 4 bullet points there. Basically, we can depreciate a new bus for 8 years. The depreciation is 1/8 the cost of the bus. And then that's considered transportation expenditures. Our state aid is based on 110% of our previous year's transportation expenditures. So basically, that depreciation we get in state aid.
It comes down to if we don't, I mean, if we have old buses, we don't get any aid from the state. If we buy newer buses, we get money from the state. We get money from the state.
Because you can only depreciate for the first 8 years, yes.
And we have at least 1/3 or more of, well, probably closer to half of our buses they're past the 8 years. And so that's the advantages of trying to keep your fleet somewhere between that 8 and 10 year range. And we've made great progress the last few years, but we're still lagging behind, no doubt. And that's what our conversation's been. And we are.
How many buses do we have?
Oh, okay, so we have probably 36 buses. We probably run 29 routes. We have 7 or 8 minibuses which are mainly sped. So we keep about 5 to 6 spares, maybe 6 spares that aren't running on a regular route. But anyway, we run in the mid 30s.
So if our fleet was upgraded and technically newer, do we need to have that many extra buses?
It depends on the route. Yeah, and actually this year, Jill did, because of lack of bus drivers, we've had to combine some routes, and then we also had to drop off some services that we generally in the past have done. But that's why we buy 77 passenger buses, and they're full. I mean, that's the best way for us to do it. Rock roads are hard on buses, we all know that. So. But that's where we're at, and I would highly suggest that we I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but we're in great position now to buy 1, to get at least that started, and if you wanted to reevaluate it, you know, for the second one down the road.
We built 1 into the budget for
Yeah,
this year.
one's already
We
there.
Yeah, we already have 1.
I mean, Laura and I visited about this. I thought, I mean, given the time it takes, it doesn't hurt us to kind of start with 1 if we have it built into the budget. I mean, this is kind of the first I've got the full written information on this depreciation thing. I think it's maybe going to take a little more analysis. You can get in trouble just act like a farmer and spend your depreciation and then be broke when you get done. But there's cash flow and there's there's timing. But I mean, I think we got to look at kind of our fleet and the average life and do some financial analysis
Right.
and not get too lost in the.
This bus is the one that was budgeted for this year, because I know 2 or 3 months ago we approved the bus, right?
We purchased a bus back in February,
Okay.
and we got it 3 weeks ago.
I thought we
But
got
that would have
two.
been in the last,
That was 2 years ago.
that would have been in
Okay,
the
so we
last
got a
fiscal
brand new one,
year.
then we got a used one or something.
Yeah, we,
2 years ago?
that was 2 years
I think
ago.
so. Boy.
Yeah, time
That's so
flies.
much fun.
Last year, we bought one route bus.
So the one in February was in the last fiscal year?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So that would be my recommendation, is to go ahead and at least get this thing moving, that we might get it in January or sometime. Then reevaluate and see where we're at.
Or the 90 or
I think too, before we agreed on a second one, I'd like to see, you know, where the GMP comes in and kind of what that priority list is after that.
Yeah.
That was another one of my
Yeah.
suggestions
I think
as
that's-
well. See where we're at.
One would be a great move forward too, would be, I mean, we could be in that position in the spring.
What Chris has asked, I mean, we've got a sheet that has like 3 buses on it. Sorry. Is there a recommendation for?
Yeah, it's the same, I'd recommend the same that we used last year, which is Midwest. Let me pull that up.
So that's the 84-115.
Is that right? It's the,
What's the middle?
it's the 85, is it Midwest? My screen.
My neck's hurting.
Midwest is the middle one.
Midwest, it's the one in the middle.
Well, there's Midwest bus and there's Midwest training.
No. It's the 8, Lori, isn't that right? The 85,
It's at the last page, 85,271.
85, that's exactly what we paid for the one that we bought last spring.
Which is, that's also the cheapest.
Correct? Yes.
Yep, I'm
So
sorry.
the bid, it didn't go up or down.
I mean, will we get rid of one of our
Yeah,
older
and then
ones?
one bus would either go to Purple Wave or, we have one bus on Purple Wave right now.
Yeah, I guess, because if it comes in early, we've got parking issues, I assume we'll get rid of one, so we got space available
Yep.
for everything.
How we do it.
And then, I don't know, Jill, and as we get through the, I mean, I think if coming back and maybe looking at that, what our average life of buses is and what our
Yeah.
turn is, and I mean, I think if we come talking about this more of the depreciation thing, I kinda wanna know what have our transportation expenses been, what have we got reimbursed from the state, and kinda how would that, I guess, change?
Well, also, what's the warranty in the maintenance?
You know, I'm not real sure
I
exactly.
believe there's something.
Yeah, there's a full warranty on it.
On the
I
new
don't
one?
know
Yeah.
what.
Yeah, I was more talking about the depreciation
No, no, right.
thing, but where you start
Yeah,
buying
I-
2 to 3, I mean,
Right.
we don't necessarily maybe need to buy 4 a year, just to get 1/8 of a bus back every year.
It would be nice to know what the deal is with the warranty though, because there might be a strategy where you'd wanna buy the
So,
bus where you
it's a-
hopefully received it in August. That way you could kinda get a full year's.
No,
worth of-
they're based on the stamp on the axle. So it's a 2020 model, and it says right there, dealer, it includes a 3-year bumper-to-bumper warranty, includes lettering and delivery. So, but what the bumper-to-bumper all involves, I don't know. It's on the bottom of the,
Yeah, this is hard to.
We're usually there
just all I know is they're under full warranty.
from the time you take receipt.
And we've had good luck with Midwest. I mean, we have a pretty good working relationship with those guys over there.
Well, what Justin's saying, is it better to take delivery in January or to take delivery in August, so that your warranty gets, so when your warranty.
When you take
goes into-
delivery.
Okay.
When you take delivery. Not when you purchase. It's, if we order it now, we wouldn't get it till after the first of the year.
Yeah, COVID slowed down. this
Yeah, it's 6 months.
But if you don't get it until like March, and you'll have 2 months of school left, would it be better to wait and order it so that it comes in July, so that you have,
It's
hit
all,
the ground running in August, November?
not necessarily. I would disagree. I said it's all based off the year of the, not the chassis, but the frame.
That's the model, that's not.
Right.
Because-
But that's what we use in our depreciation.
No, I'm saying from,
Yeah,
what
if
we're
you-
saying is the warranty, if the warranty.
Oh, I don't know
If
about-
if you got the bus delivered in May,
Oh, yeah.
Be like buying a new furnace in March, you'd,
Well, we would probably put
wouldn't
it.
get to see if it
yeah.
worked for.
We would probably put it to use right away, so.
Well, I think if you could get it in January, February, and use it several months, it doesn't make much difference. But if they're gonna delay it till May or something.
It's gonna take a little while to get it.
All right. Any other questions related to the proposed bus transaction? If not, I'd entertain a motion related to action item 5.2.
Make a motion to purchase the bus as it's presented from Midwest Bus Company.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. Thanks, Lauren,
Thank you, Lauren.
on that. With that, I think, there's a need for, a couple of executive sessions. I'm gonna ask Mr. Grattan to present a motion regarding the first one.
Okay, I move to enter into executive session for 15 minutes. Can we take 12 minutes?
If you wanna start it at, I don't know, 7:35 or?
Yeah. Starting at 7:35 for 15 minutes for consultation with an attorney which would deem privileged an attorney-client relationship to protect attorney-client privilege and the public interest. I invite Mr. Feldkamp, Mrs. Phillips into executive session, and Mr. Greg Gogi will be joining via telephone.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. We'll convene at 7:35. Then we reconvene the meeting. Possible announcements about upcoming dates. We have a meeting next Wednesday, and so more information is supposed to be coming out on Friday roughly, so everybody can see that. I mean, I just remind everyone for that deal, we hired McCown Gordon to be our professional and select the best candidates possible. So anyway, hopefully that all goes smooth. Well, we've had such a crazy summer. Strategic planning wise, I might get with Lauren and try to see if there's time in the calendar year or anything like that to fit something in. I don't know. There's been a couple questions about training. I don't know if anybody wants me to try to get KSB to come in. Again, there is several cool things online. I know I've participated in a few webinars and things with everything that's going on, but if anybody's wanting anything like that, just message me and I can work on arranging that. Are there any other announcements or upcoming things we need to think about?
One thing that I messaged Lauren about was potentially communication just on, I know that I've had some feedback on the pickup and drop off, 2-lane, single lane with the elementary school. And it sounds like that they're aware of it, there's some constraints, there's some things are being looked at, but it would be, and it's definitely challenging probably with potential bottlenecks coming in and some other things like that. It's definitely different. It'd be good if we could get some communication out with regards to, hey, we're looking at it, or it's this way for these reasons, and we recognize, appreciate your patience, and that kind of stuff.
No, it's being evaluated, but the only thing I would say initially is we've only had kindergartners
Right.
for 3 days, well, 3 half days on Thursday and Friday, and today were our first full-time. And there's gonna be challenges.
Well, the other thing is, my observation is, you don't wanna change it, like, until you have had the new plan settled out, like it's like a baseline where you go, okay, we're at this, and then, because if you keep on changing it, that's a
No,
problem
you
too.
can't keep hopping.
Right, that's just more frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a reminder to parents of patience, because I know with multiple drop-off locations and things, it's gonna, I mean, that deal was a challenge before COVID, but it doesn't hurt to keep looking, evaluating, or training up the kids like they're doing with this take-home stuff.
Honestly, having been through it several times, I thought it would be much worse than it has been. I've been pleasantly surprised. I'm concerned about inclement weather, particularly with the elementary kids going through the playground there.
Yeah.
But I thought it was better than I anticipated.
We're trying.
I know.
But it's a constant conversation.
So.
All right, with that, meeting adjourned.